Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters, your Magic the Gathering source that helps you command your budget. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all their support. Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander's Quarters studio. Welcome to the show. So today's episode comes to you courtesy of my amazing patrons. Once a month, patrons vote on what commander that they want to see in an upcoming episode. The commander that gets the most votes wins. And the commander that got the most votes this month was Jorn, God of Winter. He's a 3/3 legendary snow creature god that costs 2 and a green. And whenever he attacks, we untap each snow permanent we control. And Jorn is an MDFC god, so on the backside we've got Cauldring the Rime Staff. It's a legendary snow artifact that costs 1 blue/black, and it has tap. You may play target snow permanent card from your graveyard this turn. If you do, it enters the battlefield tapped. Now that is a nice effect, but the effect that is much more powerful, and the one that we're going to be building around, is that untap effect on the front. Being able to swing with Jorn and untap every single one of our snow permanents is huge. So we're going to work to build up a board of snow permanents, and well, you'll see where we go from there here in a bit. Now the biggest challenge of this deck is actually building it within budget constraints because of these cards. Snow-covered lands such as these are at a minimum around 60 cents a piece. Now that might not seem like a lot, but when you've got 30 or so of them, yeah, that adds up pretty quickly. That being said, the snow basics are a must-have with Jorn, because again, when Jorn untaps, we get to untap these, so we basically get double use out of our lands on each of our turns. So although it was difficult, I did manage to squeeze in snow lands into the budget. Now with this deck, we want to ramp, and ramp some more. So of course we've got our traditional ramp spells like Rampant Growth and Circuitous Route. Rampant Growth gets us 1 basic land into play tapped, and Circuitous Route gets us 2. Again, our ramp spells are essentially doubly as effective with Jorn because that land is gonna untap when Jorn attacks. So even though ramp spells like these bring lands into play tapped, we can still utilize those lands later on the turn after we attack with Jorn. This allows us to ramp at an incredible speed and get really far ahead of our opponents. Now, outside of those traditional ramp spells, we're also going to be utilizing some land auras like Wild Growth and Overgrowth. These can supercharge a land, making them even more effective when they're tapped. Wild Growth is an aura for a green, and it says whenever enchanted land is tapped for mana, its controller adds an additional green. This one is fantastic because it lets us get Jorn out on turn 2. And then Overgrowth is incredibly effective as well, costing 2 and a green, and it says whenever enchanted land is tapped for mana, its controller adds additional green. So this on one of our lands, that land essentially taps for 6 during our turn. And those enchanted lands can be even more powerful when we've got things like Sculptor of Winter and Rime Tender. Sculptor of Winter is a 2/2 snow creature elf rogue that costs 1 and a green, and it has tap untap target snow land. And then Rime Tender is similar but somewhat different. It can tap to untap another target snow permanent. Regardless, since each of these are snow permanents, Jorn is going to untap them when he attacks. Even just with a regular unenchanted snow basic, we're going to be getting 2 extra mana from each of these. And with an enchantment or 2 on a land, that amount just becomes more and more each turn. Continuing on with our ramp, we even have a snow artifact that can help us out with Replicating Ring. It costs 3 and it has tap, add 1 mana of any color, and at the beginning of your upkeep, put a night counter on Replicating Ring. Then if it has 8 or more night counters on it, remove all of them and create 8 colorless snow artifact tokens named Replicated Ring with tap, add 1 mana of any color. So if we get this down early enough and it stays in play long enough, we're essentially rewarded with 8 more snow artifact mana rocks. So yeah, if that happens, we're going to get access to 9 mana twice in a turn because of Jorn. Now, speaking of access though, there's one card in this deck that makes all of our ramp even better, and that's going to be the golden pick of this deck, which is the number 1 card out of our 99, and the golden pick for this deck is Horizon Stone. Horizon Stone is an artifact that costs 5, and it says if you would lose unspent mana, that mana becomes colorless instead. Essentially, this allows us to store our mana over multiple turns. We can dump excess mana into our mana pool and utilize it later. This really allows us to cast some huge spells and do some really crazy things with this deck. But first, let's talk about some ways that we can generate card advantage and actually get to those big spells with things like Underworld Connections. It's an enchant land aura that costs 1 black and it says enchanted land has tap, pay 1 life, draw a card. Again, Jorn can help us utilize a land twice. So this can essentially draw us 2 cards every single time around the table. Now that will cost us 1 life for each card, but 1 life in Commander is pretty much nothing. But we're also going to be running some snow-based card advantage spells like Frost Augur, Glacial Revelation, and Graven Lore. Frost Augur is a 1/2 snow creature human wizard for a blue, and it has pay as snow. Tap it and look at the top card of your library. If it's a snow card, you may reveal it and put it in your hand. So thanks to Jorn, we can utilize this twice in a turn. And then Glacial Revelation says reveal the top 6 cards of your library. You may put any number of snow permanent cards from among them in your hand, put the rest into your graveyard. We're running a ton of snow permanents in this deck, so this could be a 3 mana draw 6. And speaking of value, there's Graven Lore, which is a snow instant for 3 blue, and it says scry X, where X is the amount of snow spent to cast this spell, then draw 3 cards. So yeah, in this deck, that's gonna be scry 5 and then draw 3. Especially at instant speed, that is an incredible value. But for all this to work, we need to get Jorn through, and we've got plenty of ways to help do that with things like Blood on the Snow and Icebreaker Kraken. Blood on the Snow is a snow sorcery for 4 black, and it says choose 1, destroy all creatures, destroy all planeswalkers, then return a creature or planeswalker card with converted mana cost X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is the amount of snow spent to cast this spell. So if we choose to take out all creatures, we can essentially just get Jorn right back. And then Icebreaker Kraken is an 8/8 Kraken that costs 10 blue, but it can cost a lot less. It costs 1 less for each snow land that we control, so it can cost just blue for us. When it enters the battlefield, artifacts and creatures target opponent controls don't untap during that player's next untap step. And we can bounce it back to our hand by returning 3 snow lands back to our hand. So if a player swung out, this can prevent them from untapping so we can get Jorn through again. We've also got some ways to give Jorn some evasion like Cliffhaven Kitesail and Key to the City. Cliffhaven Kitesail is going to give him flying, and Key to the City can make him unblockable, and on top of that, we can actually use it to loot as well. Or, we can just play Colossification and make Jorn into a 23/23, and then yeah, fun times are had for all. It's going to be hard for opponents to kill Jorn when he attacks when he's that large, and if he gets through, that's a one-shot kill. Now, outside of demolishing opponents with Colossification, we've also got some ways to generate an absurd amount of tokens that can help us win, like Spawning Grounds and Gelatinous Genesis. Spawning Grounds is an aura that costs 6 green, and it says enchanted land has tap, create a 5/5 green beast creature token with trample. Again, since Jorn can untap the land that this is attached to, we're basically going to be getting 2 of these 5/5s with trample on every single one of our turns. And then Gelatinous Genesis is a sorcery for XX and a green, and it says create XXX green ooze creature tokens. So the more mana that we pump into both these X's, not only the more oozes that we get, but the bigger that they are. And again, thanks to Jorn, we can ramp incredibly quickly and generate an absurd amount of mana for this. We can also win with our opponent's creatures though with things like Draugr Necromancer and Mass Manipulation. Draugr Necromancer is a 4/4 zombie cleric that costs 3 and a black, and it says if a non-token creature an opponent controls would die, exile that card with an ice counter on it instead. You may cast spells from among cards in exile your opponents own with ice counters on them, and you may spend mana from snow sources as though they were mana of any color to cast those spells. So basically our opponent's creatures die, and we can recast them for ourselves. Or we can just take our opponent's things when they're actually in play with something like Mass Manipulation. It's a sorcery for XX, blue, and it says gain control of X target creatures and or planeswalkers. So we can take our opponent's best things and use them against them. Or we can just take things that they don't even have yet with the fantastic Villainous Wealth. It's a sorcery for X, black, green, blue, and it says target opponent exiles the top X cards of their library. You may cast any number of spells with converted mana cost X or less from among them without paying their mana cost. Basically, you pick the player that has the best cards in their deck, and then you just cast a ton of things off the top of their library for free. Oh, and then you beat down all the other players with those things. And if you're playing Villainous Wealth on a webcam, you better get your Dry Erase tokens ready to represent your crazy board state, because the table's going to be in for a wild ride. If you're looking to play this deck, consider joining the amazing PlayEDH Discord. It's a great way to play Commander over webcam. In the description below, you'll find their Discord invite link, as well as the tier that this deck has been approved at next to the deck list. So if you want to pick it up and play it as is, you can, and be sure to read their welcome information for more details. And with that, the show has come to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. So in the comments below, let me know what your thoughts on this episode are, and as always, thank you again, and have a good one.